The vaccine was developed and authorized under a Republican administration and has been distributed and administered under a Democratic administration. The vaccines are safe, highly effective. There's nothing political about them. Look at all the people who took a shot at it. Look, this is not about red states and blue states. It's literally about life and death.
That was President Biden yesterday pleading with those unvaccinated Americans all across the country to get their shots amid a rising number of cases due to the highly contagious Delta variant. In his speech, the president applauded a handful of people on the right, people like Mitch McConnell, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, and even some unnamed Fox News hosts for their recent appeals to unvaccinated people in the country, attempting to downplay the politics that now surround the vaccine now that it's needed more than ever. With new preliminary data from an internal CDC document showing that the Delta variant is as contagious as the chickenpox. But it is the president appealing to a demographic that might not exist anymore. Has the vaccine already been politicized so much that it's too late to change minds, to make a difference? As David Graham writes in The Atlantic, quote, the U.S. will eventually come out of this wave of the coronavirus, but we don't know what the costs in lives, money, mental health, and more will be. The bitter irony is that many conservative vaccine opponents and skeptics have framed their opposition in terms of the cost to Americans' freedom. Yet the hesitancy they fostered is already clawing back the freedom the country has just begun to enjoy again. Joining us now, marketing and branding expert Donny Deutsch and Basil Smikles here, Democratic strategist and lecturer at Columbia University. I will tell you both, I'm wrestling with something, and you all know this. We paid tribute to lives well lived on this show for the duration of the pandemic, and there are still people dying, almost 300 a day, and their lives were well lived as well. There were moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, and none of them had to die. And I wonder how you feel about that, Basil, having lost so many people yourself.
Yeah, something I've obviously talked with you quite extensively about, and it is concerning. It's concerning because I actually was reading the tribute to Senator Carl Levin, who just passed away. And in the tribute, it said he was someone who could be respected by both Democrats and Republicans. And I wonder how much longer we will hear tributes like that about folks in Congress or individuals who consider themselves leaders in our country who are politicizing a vaccine, who are creating a culture war around science. And, as I think about the students that I'm going to see when I go back to the classroom this fall, and we have all these questions and concerns about just sort of how to interact with each other, are elevators safe, are classrooms safe? As I think about that, I also think about the fact that many of us already have vaccines, the measles, mumps, and rubella. I don't even have a clear idea of what rubella is, but that's a good thing, right? Because it's something that that we've taken out of our community because of the science. And what's so troubling is that as we move forward, as we start looking at our leaders and hopefully continue to look at our leaders for guidance, for support, for a direction and a path forward, we can find a way to come together. But in the way that you sort of started the segment, it does seem that there are more and more people who are so devilishly opposed to not just the vaccine, but just listening to what comes out of certain people's mouths is going to put us all in danger. And we feel it, and I feel it, and I know friends and family feel it every single day.
Yeah, and, the fact that there are ICU units filling up in parts of the South mostly, Donny, these are fellow Americans. It is a tragedy. And at this point, it doesn't have to be this way. I wonder if you think about the fact that even death and sickness and suffering doesn't break the addiction to disinformation, to the bigger question on the table, will anything?
Yeah, I actually do think there is something. And I've been talking about this a couple of weeks, and Biden laid a foundation of it. When he got up there and he talked about, he paid homage and said, look, this was developed by the Republicans. He's walking right into the fact that he is political. Let's politicize it more. I've been saying, and I don't say this glibly, let's call it the Trump vaccine. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders came out with an op-ed the other day that said that. In the op-ed piece, she didn't refer to science. She referred to Trump 10 times. We know who's not getting it. We know that 90% of Democrats have been vaccinated, only 54% of Republicans. Let's walk right into the political aspect and say, hey, this is Trump's vaccine. You know, if you're a Trumper and you're part of this cult, this is, give him credit, go overboard and say, you know what, we're administering it now, but he Project Warp Speed, this is the Trump vaccine, brand it that way. Give him the credit, anything that will save lives. And I actually think that would be effective. Because once again, this is not a left brain thing at this point. And you're not going to sway them with any facts. Play right into the fearless leader, the cult leader, say it's his vaccine. That would work. Let's really politicize it.
Well, I mean, Basil, if they're willing to take a flag and beat a police officer with it, you'd think they'd be willing to take a life-saving vaccine. I noted in the last segment that 2 women this week have called Kevin McCarthy some variation of an idiot. Nancy Pelosi called him a moron, and Peggy Noonan called him stupid. Let me show you Tim Ryan sort of expanding on the stupidity of Republicans around being asked to put masks back on in light of the new data, new information about the contagious nature of the Delta variant. Here's Congressman Tim Ryan.
I may not be from a hot spot. Speaker may not be from a hot spot. Speaker Pelosi may not be from a hot spot. Somebody in this chamber is coming from a hot spot. Somebody represents the hot spots. And they get in a plane and they fly here and they interact with all of us. I just find it absolutely immature and appalling to somehow diminish it to try to score cheap political points. And that's exactly what we saw a few minutes ago. That is beneath a minority leader of one of the major political parties in the United States of America, saying we should take no caution that someone from a hotspot is working in this chamber and could potentially get someone infected that could go home to a sick parent or an immune-compromised kid. That is beneath us. That is beneath us.
He's so spot on there, Basil. And again, I keep coming back to this question: Are we too broken to beat the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, it seems like we're stuck in a soda war, right? And that's the only way that I could sort of visualize it and think about it. That people have taken a side, are so diametrically opposed to engaging or even thinking about the veracity of someone else's position on this, that it is going to cost lives. And I saw some stuff circulate on social media the other day where you had doctors and nurses who had patients that were very sick and probably close to death with COVID and perhaps this new variant saying, can I take the vaccine now? And they're like, no, it's too late. And it just, I do fear, and it does concern me, that we are too broken and too divided to really to get this right. And the longer we do this, the longer our economy is going to take to get back up and running. In New York, we're talking about reopening Broadway again with some vaccine and mask stipulations there. So, we all have a role that we have to play, and it's clear that some have abdicated that responsibility. There is no longer a we, it's a me. And that's devastating. That's devastating for both the country and our sort of global economy, for us to all just sort of get back to business and get back to work.